So at the very end of the gospel today, then Jesus said to the chief priests and officers of the temple and elders who had come out against him, "Have you come out against a robber with swords and clubs? When I was with you day after day in the temple, you did not lay hands on me. But this is your hour and the power of darkness." It's his hour, the great hour he has lived for, and it's the hour of the power of darkness. From this point forward, it seems that Jesus draws forth, like the great physician, all of the infection and the pus of the wound of sin. And evil has its hour, the darkest of days. And as everything comes out during the Passion, and we see more and more the reality of who we are when we give ourselves over to sin, we also see that, in fact, that's what it means. If you want to see the blossoming of sin and of the works of Satan and of the works of sinful men, you look to the Passion. There are other moments in history that are also quite dark. And in Revelations, we read so much about Babylon the city, which probably stands for Rome, which was persecuting Christians at the time. But we're reading about Babylon the country, still in Jeremiah, Babylon the great, sort of second Egypt, in which the Jews were held captive. But the idea with Babylon, at least in Revelations 18, is that, in a way, this is the hour of Babylon, in the same way that Jesus says, "This is your hour and the power of darkness." If you watch American Greed, which is a pretty cool show, and it's all about scam artists who take advantage of people, when people who only care about money, and they don't care how they get it, when they do get it, they show what they're made of. They spend it on the kinds of things that they think are valuable. Typically, lots and lots of expensive cars. These scam artists usually have a dozen or more fancy cars. Lots of drugs, lots of sex with prostitutes and people like that. And that's kind of the fruit of evil. That's where the amor sui, the love of self, leads. That's Babylon. The city of Babylon is not just a symbol for Rome, and it's not just a symbol for a metropolitan, condensed embodiment of the country that invaded Judah and destroyed the temple. Babylon is this human society that has no bounds to its lusts, to its concupiscence, to what St. Augustine would call its libido dominandi, its dominating desires and its desires to dominate. The great Babylon is set to fall, as all things that try to puff themselves up into giant balloons eventually pop. So we see that in Revelations 18 with Babylon, but we also see that in the Passion. Even though the Passion seems to be successful, even though the forces of evil seem to be successful at their hour, the hour of the powers of darkness, they seem to win and overcome. But through what appears to be their victory is really their greatest defeat. Because when they are allowed fully to blossom and to do the worst they can, which includes killing the only completely good man who ever lived and killing God himself at the same time, for he is both, when they're allowed to do that, they somehow destroy themselves. That's the end of the earthly city, the city merely of man, the city merely of sin, the city of darkness. So that's a thread, I think, that connects both those readings and still connects what's going on in Jeremiah. For the fruit of the sins of the people of God led them into captivity.